Hey, thanks for joining us on the Eat Crunchy podcast. We are three sisters on a journey towards healthy lives using Weight Watchers to get there. We'd love to hear about your journey as well on our Facebook page or at eatcrunchy.com.
Hey, it's Heidi, and our topic today is coping skills and emotional eating. So you guys, I've talked about this before, how I'm kind of a bit of an emotional eater, happy, sad, all the range really, but I found the past few weeks that I really emotionally eat when I'm frustrated, angry, or sad. Like those are kind of like my emotions that are like the worst emotions to deal with in terms of eating. And I realized this last week that I don't even think about it. I walked into the pantry, I'd gotten a handful of M&Ms, and on the second handful, I thought, what am I doing? I don't want this food. Like, it's like it triggered, and it registered for me that, like, I'm emotional eating. This is me emotional eating.
In the moment.
And I realized I need some coping skills. So I turned to you guys to help me develop those coping skills. Or think of coping skills, or what coping skills... Just coping skills, guys. I guess I wanted to throw the question out there. In the past few months or whenever you've had a behavior that you want to change, what coping skills have you learned? And I'll start with Rebecca.
So, okay, I love my life. I love what I do, but I feel like I have a lot of stress that builds up throughout the day. And I was at work the other day, and it was just a particularly stressful day. And I'm going to get to the coping skill, but I have to tell a story first. There's always got to be a story involved. So I was feeling a lot of emotion, and I kind of internalize things. So like when things happen around me, some people will like scream and they focus on other people. I like hold it inside. And so it was the end of the day, and I wanted to come home and eat a big thing of ice cream, and that's what my heart really wanted. But, you know, I wanted the scale to say what I wanted it to say. And so I found myself like feeling torn between this desire to feel comforted and to feel, safe in my little part of my couch versus like making the goals that I have. So I actually decided it would be helpful to kind of work through and unpack some of the things that had been building up. So I called my cousin Nathan and talked with him about kind of what was happening, and just that I had a really stressful day, and kind of talked about why it was stressful. And we talked for a couple hours, which was really nice of him to kind of give his time. But I found that like by the end of our conversation, I had felt a lot more calm. And I feel like my stomach turns off when I'm stressed, if that makes sense. Like I can eat and eat and eat and eat, and I won't recognize that I'm eating when I am feeling stressed. And I knew if I put one thing in my mouth, I was going to put 70 of that same thing in my mouth that same day. And I had to get that out first. So I got to talk about what was stressful for me. I got to like get distracted by talking about things that were happening in his life. And then at the end of the day, I came home and had a small snack and went to bed. So for me, I felt like a big thing is recognizing when you're experiencing the tension, and like...
That was going to be my next question is, it's like yours is right beyond where I was, where the hand was in the bag.
Right.
You recognized it before your hand hit the bag.
Right.
And...
Well, so today my version of that was that I bought a cookie during work. I bought a cookie downstairs that I really wanted to have, but I didn't think at the time that I was doing it for an emotional purpose. And I don't know it was entirely that, but it wasn't until I had purchased the cookie, I was going back to my desk, that it dawned on me, is this really the decision you want to make right now? And I decided that it wasn't, and I gave the cookie away to somebody else so that I could kind of be removed. So I feel like sometimes you're going to recognize it ahead of time. Sometimes you're going to be in the moment. So I think that, being able to, when you've realized after your first handful of M&Ms, like rather than going for the second handful, being able to step away then and say, I need to, for me, it's talk about it, call somebody, journal about it, listen to music. Those types of things are helpful for me because they get my brain off of it.
I think those things are easy to say, but sometimes I have a hard time forcing myself in the moment to be like, okay, I'm going to take a walk around the house instead. Lisa?
So what I was thinking about, Heidi, when you were saying that you recognize the stress when your hand is in the cookie jar or the M&M jar or whatever, I feel like I think that's good that you recognize it. Sometimes I don't even know that I'm feeling stress in my life until I'm a few days into having a lot of food struggles, and I'll pause and I'll go, okay, I feel like I've just been craving foods that I know I shouldn't have, and I'm 2 or 3 days into this, and I've been trying to mitigate, but there's nothing stressful happening in my life. What's going on? And then I realize, oh, you're actually really stressed out, and it's manifesting it with hunger, but it hasn't reached your brain yet. Like I haven't even recognized. So I think sometimes that's what happens to me anyway, that I don't even know ahead of time that I'm having the stress until it starts to manifest like that anyway. So,
So for that, it almost seems like it starts with cravings as opposed to the impulse of just, like, I mean, I literally was frustrated, stood up, walked to the kitchen, and put my hand in the M&M bag.
yeah, I feel like I have cravings, and it takes, and I'm like, oh, I'm just having cravings today, you know, and then I realize later that, okay, I was stressed out, and that's how I was dealing with it, but I wasn't fully aware of those emotions, and the food sometimes helps me be aware of it. That's just a weird thing about me that that's one of those things for me to work on, but, I've always thought though, I really have a hard time when people say like, just go on a walk. I'm like, you've never had the cravings that I've had if you think you can just go on a walk and that's going to fix it. Like it doesn't work like that for me. So what I try to do is have my foods that are like my backup foods. You know, if I feel like I just want to have a lot of something, then I go make my popcorn or I go have my lower calorie chips and I let myself have whatever I want because that's better than having, you know, the thing that's higher calories or something and having, you know, and it going worse, you know, off the wagon. So I try to just bring down, you know, have the yummy things that are healthier. You're not going to get me to eat like a grape or something at that moment. Like if I want something yummy. So I have kind of my list of foods that are, in my opinion, yummy that are better. And that just kind of mitigates the damage and then try to work through the emotion.
So your concept of craving actually made me think of something that I've thought throughout this journey is I'm still the same person. Like just because I'm on the journey, I've chosen Weight Watchers as my method of getting there. Like I'm still the same person. And so it makes me think, if I can dig into my Psychology 101 class a little bit, what is it, Pavlov that did the experiment with the dogs, that he would crave things based on the bell.
Yeah.
The dog would, not Pavlov.
Sorry.
What grade did you get in that class?
I clearly paid a lot of attention. When the bell rang, he got a treat. When the bell rang, he got a treat. And then when the bell rang, he would just slobber because he was anticipating the treat. And so I think the concept, not that we're dogs, but the concept is the same in that this is what I've used to deal with those emotions for not just years, but for decades. I've used this as my coping skill. This is my method of dealing with it. And just because I take away the food, I have nothing to fill the gap. And that's what makes it so much more challenging for me, is that not only have I recognized I don't have anything to fill the gap, but I'm not really quite sure how to develop something to fill the gap because I clearly need something in that gap. When I get frustrated, what do? So I like the concept of chatting it out. I like going and taking a walk. I think you're right. When my hand is literally, I mean, I'm visioning myself in the pantry, guys. Like my hand is in the M&M bag, like putting it away and going and taking a walk. It just doesn't seem like an option right then. And so I like the concept of having like healthier foods. I'm not saying I can't eat right now, but at least let me choose something healthier and maybe I can kind of go from there.
What do you think about talking yourself off of the amount that you want to have, but saying, okay, I'm having an emotion. I want chocolate now. Can I keep it to 5 or 6 M&Ms instead of, I mean, do you think that would work?
I don't think that I'm capable. I have a real problem with that portion concept. In that I don't know that I'm capable of just taking 5 and that fulfilling the craving.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's the emotional response of it. So, I don't know.
You know, I think, though, the concept of being able to identify when you're doing a behavior is really half the battle. And for me, what works for me is having an alternative behavior. So another story, but a little bit of a different...
You're really full of those today.
A little bit of a different thing is that, so like, you are really good at being able to have lots of yummy foods in your home and not eat them. I don't have that same ability. And so for a long time, my home had lots of healthy things. And I would come to your house and I noticed I would greet you and your family members and your pets and I would go to your fridge. And that was like my path. And it dawned on me one of the times that I had visited that like I was standing in front of your fridge because you had really yummy food and I didn't have yummy food at my house and I wanted to eat your yummy food. Why was I in front of your fridge? I should be playing with my nephews. I should be doing these other fun things. And I had done some of that, but I was standing in front of your fridge and I thought, I don't want to be the person that comes to Heidi's house and like dives into her fridge within the first 20 minutes. And so I made a rule for myself. Like when the next time I get to Heidi's house, the next time I walk in her door, I'm not allowed to go into her kitchen until I'm there for at least an hour, which is when we would like make food or something like that. And
That's quite a rule, man.
so I had to
quite a rule.
I had to come up with alternatives, and so I'm lazy. And a Rebecca in motion stays in motion. A Rebecca, not in motion doesn't move. And so I knew if I sat down on the ground and started playing with kids, I wasn't going to get up. I would forget about it. So I had to come up with an alternative behavior that is going to work for me. And so I'm wondering, is there an alternative behavior that you could set up for yourself you could visualize ahead of time, you could practice ahead of time, and then when the moment hits, you could see if it works?
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely some thought there. It's interesting because yours was the coping skill. It's not so much, yours wasn't a coping skill, it was a habit.
Yeah,
and I
kind
think
of
there's
like
a
you said,
there,
changing the habit.
And then finding a way to incorporate a different habit.
Mm-hmm.
The other answer is, and this happens too, is just do what you're going to do and then just get right back on.
Yeah, I do that every day. Not every day, but I mean, after I eat the M&Ms, I'm like, oh, that wasn't a wise choice, and I get back on. And I'm having success with Weight Watchers, but it's certainly not as fast or as, successful as it could be. So one thing I did do, and I think this has helped, is on my phone, I've that's not a word. I've put an inspirational quote, I go and I change it a couple times a week, because it's typically I have a frustrating event. I work from home, so I'm in my room. I have a frustrating event with a coworker, or I have a poor experience with something. And I normally grab my phone and I walk into the kitchen, and on the way to the kitchen, I kind of check to see, what's Facebook doing. But the concept that I looked at my phone, I thought that's kind of my first step in catching myself, is a reminder that of my goal. And then what I'm planning on doing this week is also putting reminders in the kitchen, at the site of attack in the kitchen, putting reminders of my goals.
Just to kind of build that awareness.
Yeah,
that's
and putting reminders of my whys. Why am I doing this? So that was really helpful to chat through. I feel like some of this is also just learning what the behavior, identifying it before it happens, learning what it is that I don't even know how to say this, but what it is that's causing me to act this way, to follow through that in behavior, and then finding a coping skill to fill that gap. Because it's not just about willpower. I mean, I have willpower. It's about even recognizing it and finding something that's going to fill the hole, because clearly there's a hole.
Well, but like you said too, I mean, these decisions sometimes seem to happen on autopilot. You don't remember that you don't even feel like you've made a choice. It's you wake up and you're like, what am I doing with chocolate in my mouth? That's
really the moment that I had in the pantry. The second hand, it was it's my brain woke up, and I was like, this has become such a habit, so ingrained in how I deal with this, that I didn't even recognize that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. We were just talking about our struggles. Candace, actually posted on our Eat Crunchy page. We were talking about freestyle and how we're doing on freestyle. And she echoed a lot of the sentiments that I've been feeling recently, just a little bit of frustration. She says, I think if I was able to truly follow it, I would lose weight, but I'm not yet able to stay within my points, dailies or weeklies. I think I rolled over once. I hear you, Candace. That's me too. I rolled over once. When I make enough changes and I am truly staying within the guidelines, I expect to lose weight. I agree that it is harder to eat out with less points. Nowhere that I am going is selling grilled chicken breasts with vegetables.
Very few places, and they usually have something much better on the menu.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't have the grilled chicken breast with no oil and no nothing else.
I've been feeling that a little bit, in that I feel like freestyle could be amazing if only I could do it, and I'm having a hard time doing it.
Yeah.
Lisa, I think that you had kind of said the same concept of it's hard to stay within it.
Yeah, I thought so too. I mean, I feel like making more things free that was nice. I think that's, I guess, theoretically a good idea. Although I said now I feel like chicken is a health food and I don't want it, because I associate it with asparagus,
right?
Because it's free. But then cutting my points, and I do think sometimes I like to have a lot of whole grains, and I felt like my points are disappearing too quickly every day. So I thought a lot about it and decided to switch over to Simply Filling. So I'm excited to see how it works. I looked at the list for Simply Filling, and it's actually a much more comprehensive list of foods than what I had originally thought, because You can have whole grain cereal. I didn't even know.
So wait, so
I
back
feel
up.
like-
So for those of us like me that are strictly points, can you explain a little bit of what Simply Filling is?
So Simply Filling, they give you a list of foods, a pretty big list of foods that you can eat until you're full, and then you have weekly points, but you don't have
So
daily
no
points
daily
anymore.
points and a list of just foods that you can eat till you're full.
Yeah, and it's basically everything that's 0 points on the regular the point Weight Watchers. Just
On Freestyle.
thank you on Freestyle. But then it also has a lot of whole grains. You can have like brown rice. You can have like whole grain pasta, brown wheat pasta. You can have potatoes. You can have dairy as long as it's fat free. You can have bread. You can have, like the sort of thin bagel bread and things like that. So it's a pretty big list to where you could come up with a lot of meals with it. And I think that it sort of fits the way that I had been trying to eat anyway. But the same way that I was trying to eat fits on Simply Filling. But on Freestyle, I feel like I was running out of points, if that makes sense, with like the same diet.
I feel like this is big news because I don't know that many people, and by that many, I mean I know 0 people who are doing Simply Filling. So I'm curious if there are other people who are doing Simply Filling, and do they find it helpful? And when I first started Weight Watchers, I actually kind of thought Simply Filling was more for people who had hit maintenance. So I'm
Interesting.
curious to see what your journey will be in the next couple weeks. If you're
As am
finding
I.
yourself being satisfied and fulfilled. And
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of it is. I think, and I want to do a podcast on this in the future, but I think the concept of deprivation, I think that's something I've struggled with in the past. And then when my points got cut, I just have not been able to emotionally, deal with it. I feel like I started to feel like I was having a daily moment of deprivation when I was just running out of points so quickly. And I guess I'm hoping that Simply Filling, I can feel like the world is out there. There's plenty of food. I'm not worried about deprivation, but still not, overeating those foods. So we'll see what happens.
I'm really interested. I hope you share, well, I know you will because we'll be asking you in a couple weeks your results. And I would be curious if there's anybody else out there who's doing Simply Filling, or if
Yeah.
you've done it in the past.
Advice, please.
Yeah, tell us some advice and tell us how it worked with you. I'm really curious about it. It's one of those things that I paused at when I first joined Weight Watchers and then just kind of continued and haven't thought about since. So
Yeah.
I'm curious about others' experiences on Simply Filling. So that wraps up this podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Hit us up on eatcrunchy.com or on our Facebook page. We love the comments.
And what's our email?
Oh, our email is eatcrunchyblog@gmail.com. We love
And-
emails too.
And this is our 10th podcast.
Oh my gosh, I totally
Yay!
forgot. This is our 10th podcast.
Yay, thank you guys for listening for 10
I like to
podcasts.
think that we've gotten better since the first one.
We have a jazzy new jingle.
We do have a jazzy new jingle, which you heard on this podcast. We've rolled it out live. So yeah, this is our 10th one. Thank you everybody for listening. We really appreciate it. And we love hearing your comments and your thoughts and your feedback and emotions and all that fun stuff. So thank you again.